long meeting, and I hope you're all patient as we make our way through it. We'll have a couple of men in to describe their programs, and I hope you all give us your attentive respect. Thank you. And now, regarding the approval of last month's minutes, I'll ask for a motion to accept them.
Hey, Mike.
I move.
Sue moves it. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Tina seconds it. I have one minor thing on it, Bob or James. Second to the last page where we're talking about conflict of interest forms. It says Dugan motion to approve those. They're actually just accepted.
That is correct.
And since that's all law, we probably should change the word.
Where was that exactly, John?
Second to last page.
Third page.
6. Actually, it's in Dugan's motion. Which
Yeah,
reminds me,
That's a good catch.
Pam, neither Pam nor Lance will be here tonight. Okay, I need to vote. All those in favor of approval of the December 17 minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's passed. We're going to have Bob give the treasurer's report in lieu of Lance.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I don't dress near as nice as Lance does. I apologize for that.
You don't look as good as you do.
Yeah, I totally do too. Okay, on the back table was a copy of the December financial highlights. I hope you all picked up a copy of it. Obviously, December was a good month. We got our tax settlement checks in for the fall, and that was pretty much all of the income that we had in the month of December. I thought I'd break it down for you a little bit to let you know how the taxes are coming in out here. In Brown County, our full tax settlement was $26,318. For the total year from Brown County, we received $62,682. We were given a tax levy by the Department of Local Government Finance for Brown County for $63,594 for the year. We had a shortfall of about $911. In Monroe County, we received $81,258 in the fall settlement. Total for the year was $185,200. Tax levy that we were given was $186,359. We're about $1,100 on the shortfall in Monroe County. If you combine both the districts, our tax settlements for the entire year was $247,883. The total district tax levy for 2014 was $249,953. We had budgeted $250, but remember we have to do the budget number months and months and months before we get our levy. So really we budgeted $250 and our levy was actually $249,953. Total district tax settlement shortfall was about $2,069. Reason for the shortfalls could be pretty much just delinquent taxes. People just haven't paid their taxes. That's about it. We'll eventually get caught up and get that money.
Just curiosity, the difference between what we asked in the 450 versus 491, that's just a difference in what they collected, or is that what they limited our tax levy to?
The state determines our tax
And
levy.
so they determined to be 491 versus what we requested is 250.
They determined it to be $249,953.
Oh, okay, yeah.
$47
Yeah, right,
less
all right.
than what we
Sorry, I didn't
budgeted
catch
for.
the 9.
I'll pay the 47.
Okay. Expenses for the month of December, salary and wages, $10,489. That was pretty much Levi, James, and I, and Clint, the push boat operator. Supplies, $2,700. Most of that came in our fuel and regular fuel. We topped off our gas tanks at the end of the year, so we have full tanks to start the new year. Contractual services was $33,000. Majority of that was paid to Remetrics, who did the bathymetric sedimentation study, and to Image Matters, who we use as a consultant to check on that project. Jeff is here. He'll be talking in a little bit about the bathymetry study. Boat repairs, that's winterizing of the boats. We did have a crack in the block on the pontoon boat. That had to get repaired. It came to about $926. Equipment rental was the overhead crane to take the barge off the lake, and we took $5,000 from our cumulative maintenance fund, and we transferred it into a cumulative maintenance fund CD for $5,000. Summary for the month, we had income of $107,783. Expenses were $46,834. We had a net income of about $60,000 for the month of December, and that's pretty much normal. Questions on the December highlights? Okay, along with that, I would like a motion to approve the December highlights, and also in your packet was we made an additional correction to the transfer of funds that we did last month. We needed to put another $300 into the retirement account. So when you make the motion, if you approve the financial highlights for December, also include the additional $300 transfer.
We approved the vouchers, but we also approved the
I haven't got to the vouchers
I
yet.
know, fine, well.
So you
I'll
need
ask
a
for-
motion to approve this?
The highlights, I thought Lance always gets a motion to
Lance
approve
did
his
it later.
highlights.
Has it?
Really? I'm surprised.
All right, in Lance's,
I thought he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
I'll make the motion that we approve the highlights. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And the additional transfer.
And, excuse me, the transfer of funds correction, yeah. That's account 6111, right?
What? I'm sorry, John, I was moving ahead. What was your question?
I just wanted to make sure we had the right funds on the transfer. My paper says we're going from the dredger to the retirement.
Right.
All right.
Staff, yes.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the highlights and the transfer of funds, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Second, please.
Yeah, somebody said
Kim
second.
did. Thanks, Bob.
Okay, report of claims in your packet. Any questions on the report of claims? I would entertain a motion to approve the report of claims.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the report of claims for December.
Did you hear Sue second? Any more discussion? All those in favor of approval of the claims, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, the biggest part of the report is the end-of-year financial report. There were copies of that on the back table. You could follow along with us. Lance did this report. Didn't actually know he wasn't going to be here until a couple of days ago, so we kind of looked at it and made a few additions to it. On the income side, for the entire year, our revenues were up $22,000 when compared to our budget. Watercraft permits and launch fees were up $18,000 as compared to the budget. We did receive a $5,000 grant from the state that was not anticipated for weed control. Sublease and marina fees were also slightly above budget for the year. On our expenses, we underspent the budget by $7,417, which basically means the additional appropriation that we approved in December for $22,000 additionally is not necessary, it's not needed, it goes away. But it was good to have that as a backup in case we had to overspend the budget. Not bad. You got a $500,000 budget and you underspend it by $7,000. That I think that's some pretty good budgeting, to be honest. Wages and benefits were $8,400. We're under budget year ending 2014. Dredging salaries were $12,000 under budget for the year. Lake biologists was up $4,400 over budget as we increased the hours during the course of the year. Supplies were $4,900 over budget. spent $7,800 over budget on dredging supplies and $1,400 over budget on riprap stone. Fuel costs came in $5,300 under the budget for the year. Building and grounds was $1,800 over budget for the year. Professional services was $14,719 over budget. We paid $30,541 for the bathymetry report when we only budgeted $15,000. Insurance was $7,700 under budget. Printing and advertising, $882 was over budget. Predominantly all of that went to all the advertising we did for the district manager position. Utility service was over budget, $748 over on the portalets and $226 over on the trash. Don't let that portalet number scare you. That number is always dead on, but last year, at the end of 2013, Monroe Tough John, who does our portalets, his bookkeeper quit late in the year and he never got bills out until the following year. So there's actually the last half of 2013 that we also paid in 2014 because he never got bills out in 2013. So other services and charges, $14,000 under budget. We did not do the spillway repairs that were budgeted for $10,000. Weed treatment came in at $11,000 under budget. Nate's here to talk about weed treating. That's because he's just an outstanding contractor and saves us all kinds of money all the time. Ain't that right, Nate? Where are you? Are you hiding over there? Yeah, okay. Capital outlays, we did buy a computer for James this year, and we also bought a utility vehicle. We bought a new Gator. This is where it becomes real interesting. I'll try to go over this as easily as I can. All right, total income over expenses for the year. Total expenses, the actual expenses we had for this year were $494,000. We had budgeted $500,000 in the budget, 501. So we underspent the budget of $7,400. That's a positive number. We underspent the budget by $7,400. On our income, we actually received $484,000 and we budgeted $462,000, which was over budget by a whopping $22,000. So we made $22,000 more this year than we had in our budget, which is another positive figure of 22. So you add the two up, the 7 and the 22, you come to a total of 29,573. On the expense budget, this is early on. Remember, we do the budget 6 months before we actually need a budget. And the 2014 budget, we had budgeted 501,983 to spend, 501,000 to spend, and we anticipated income of 462. So we had an unbalanced budget this year. We anticipated losing $39,000 this year because our expenses were more than our income. It wasn't a balanced budget. This year we've budgeted $30,000 or so over our expected income. But we had a surplus in our checking account. We had the $39,000 in the checking account to handle the shortfall of $39,000. Okay, take that $39,000 now. Expenses actual 2014, $494. That included the $5,000 CD that we took out of the checking account, and that we bought a CD. So we really didn't, we took it out of the checking, but we put it in our savings. So that's not really an expense out. Income actual was $484, subtotal shortfall was $9,600. Put back the $5,000 CD, and our net loss for this year was $4,609. $4,609, but we were expecting to lose $39,183. It's a good year. It's a really good year financially. We are really solid. Down below, we've got $152,000 in the checking account as of December 31st. We have general fund CDs of $216,000. In cumulative maintenance fund account, we have $76,796. Financially, I couldn't leave this district in any better financial shape than it is right now. Here you go. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob, and congratulations on that. rifle shot on the budget.
Oh, I guess I'm up again. Vegetation control.
I have
Oh,
a question,
yes.
I'm raising my hand. I'm Barbara Ritter, and I was wondering on the professional services, how come we budgeted so little? We only budgeted 15,000 and it came out to be 30,000. I'm just using my figures.
Because when we did the budget, we didn't even have plans to do a bathymetry study. That didn't come into play until the DSG got into the process of looking at a bathymetry study. We didn't even approve the bathymetry study until May of 2014. So it wasn't even in our budget processing plans when we put the budget together a year before that.
One other question.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't we do the repairs like we were supposed to do on the spillway?
Only for the fact that we went and got a quote and it was $30,000. And we knew we only had $10,000 in that line item. We knew we were gonna have a really tight budget going through the rest of the year. If we had turned around and spent $30,000 to fix the spillway, then we certainly would have needed that additional appropriation of $22,000.
Is that in this year's budget then to fix the spillway? to repair the
I think we put 15,000 in for this year for that. I'm trying to see if we can get the water company to come on board with that. That's hardcore infrastructure. This is the Stilling Basin, where we open up the sluice gate. There's a crack in it. It's not imminent. It's not gonna come down tomorrow. There's some scouring going on where the water backs up when we let it out, and it's going to be a very costly repair. It would be one of those kinds of repairs, you may want to take some of that $76,000 you got in Cume Maintenance Fund CDs and pay for it that way. But it's going to be an expensive repair.
And it has to be done all at once, you can't do it in
Yeah, it's got to be all done, all one time. So we'll talk to the CBU about it. They haven't been very forthcoming. Don't get me wrong, they've been great partners, but they haven't been very forthcoming over the last several years with any kind of monetary assistance to the district. I think we're getting to the point in our history right now that the cost of doing business there is going to keep going up, and you can only have the freeholders pay so much of it without some kind of help from some other source. Other questions? Okay, vegetation control update. Nate Long from Aquatic Control is here. He's going to give us a summary of our weed control last year, and then I'd like to follow that up with the board approving his 2015 operating agreement.
Got an outline like normal. I didn't bring enough for everybody. I used to do this in PowerPoint so everybody could see, but the last few years there's only been 5 or 6 people here, so this has been a good time to do it. Real briefly, I'm Nathan Long with Aquatic Control. We're a lake management company out of Seymour, Indiana. We've been in business since the 1960s and been working with Lake Lemon for about 20 years now. Brief history. And I do have a graph, as you can see, of the amount of acreage we've treated. We're doing maintenance treatments here. We're not seeing that we don't come in and do something and it's going to take care of it for 5 or 6 years. So we see ups and downs in the amount of acreage we treat. As Bob mentioned, you're under budget this year. Some years we've been over. It's usually kind of an up and down type deal. The last 3 years, though, we've been kind of steady, with this year a little bit down on the amount of nuisance vegetation that you guys treat. We did request funding from the Lake and River Enhancement Program. Request a lot, we get a little. You guys have got a lot in the past. This year you did get 5,000. I'm not sure if you're able to use that funds. And Bob, did you end up approving that?
Yeah, we got it. Yeah,
Good deal. But mostly the LAIR funds are supposed to be used for offshore invasive plant treatments. You do have an invasive plant called Eurasian water milfoil here. That's all the state will take care of, our invasive plants. They won't do anything for some of the native plants that you have. So that's what those funds are used for. And they also won't, with the maintenance agreement they had, they use that money for some of your offshore areas, which you didn't have many offshore milfoil beds this year, the dense beds that you've probably seen here in the past and sometimes in the springtime. This year started out, well, basically I came to this meeting last 2014, and I predicted that you'd have less growth this year. I hate making predictions, they're usually 50-50 shot, but that was based on kind of what we saw in the fall of 2013. You had very little growth. The treatments we did early in 2013 did a good job. We had a real late spring in 2014. That seemed to slow things down. You didn't have a drawdown that past winter. Part of the drawdown is for weed control. We like to get a good freeze and thaw on that soil. It can break up some of the wintering structures of your invasive plants, and they don't come back as strong. We've had several years where we couldn't get that good freeze, and we think you got it this year though. Like I said, the late start slowed things down. Normally the way things work is James keeps an eye on the lake, and Bob, and get reports, and when things start getting start seeing the plant growth, which you always do, there's always gonna be plants growing in here, hopefully. You don't want a lake without plants, it's good for your fish cover. But when you start seeing nuisance levels of plants, James will call us up, and we'll come out here and we'll spend the whole day going around the lake, kind of marking the worst areas of the lake. And then we'll plant a treatment. Normally used to be we'd do that before Memorial Day, so we'd have things cleaned up for Memorial Day, but this year it was delayed because the plants just never came on, and we didn't get out here till early June. Like I said, there was very little offshore plant growth. There were some nuisance areas up close. We treated on June 12th, only 33 acres, pretty spotty treatment. There weren't any real large beds, but it was more of, you see some patches here along docks, patches there. That makes treatment a little tougher when you're putting a liquid product into liquid, because you get a little bit of drift. We did have to come back. These guys, they stay on top of it unlike any other lake association. After we're done treating, they go out and check stuff within a week or two to see, and sometimes these small areas you control not 100%, and we had to come back and we touched up a few small areas and also did a treatment of 17 acres at that time. Only had to come back really for one more large-scale treatment where we treat the lotus. We keep it behind a certain line in the upper end there, and touched that up, touched up some more milfoil, and then a late treatment in August where we did 10 acres. And we do 2 treatments on the lotus. When you're treating American lotus, you have to spray each plant. We're talking about the big lily. You have to spray each plant. We use an airboat because it's very shallow. And when you go over an area and come back where you drive over, oftentimes it washes it off, so it's good to come back and touch those areas up where you wash off your chemical. So 2014 was a rather tame year. Late start, kept things in check pretty well. We didn't see as much of a late summer growth of a plant that you often see in the shallows called brittle naiad. We've seen a lot more of that in the past. It wasn't here late this summer, I don't know why. But overall, you guys did real well on your budget, and I think we kept things under decent control here, which being a very shallow, nutrient-rich lake, if you guys did nothing here, I think we look back in our records to 1978, and they said they did a treatment of almost 500 acres of plants in this lake. So that's quite a bit of the lake used to be covered with weeds here. So being proactive like you guys are has really helped out. So I'm gonna make my predictions for 2015. I hope you got it running right there. Don't you play it back.
Yeah, I'll check it.
Drawdown, you've got a drawdown. You had a good freeze, unlike we did in the past. You'd have drawdowns where you get the snow on there and you wouldn't get that real hard freeze of the soil. We haven't had any snow, but we had cold weather this year, so I think that's going to help out. Obviously, I can't predict the weather, if we're going to have early spring. What I can predict is milfoil is a perennial plant. It's not an annual plant that comes up by seed. It overwinters. And there wasn't much here late fall. So when we've seen in late fall, we've seen big beds offshore. Those have been there the next year and they've spread. So without seeing that late this fall, I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of milfoil this spring. But the weather can be a big factor. If you get a real early spring, that could change things. Budget is good. Good enough to take care of a lot of the areas like we have. But the one thing we do worry about is some of the main lake areas. We've seen years where you've had 150, 200 acres of milfoil and haven't had the budget to treat it. understandably so, and then that makes it a little difficult, and that's hopefully where the state kind of steps in and helps out with the LAIR funding. You guys have applied for LAIR funding. You sent that in already, Bob? So I wouldn't hold my breath on getting it, but it's worth a shot. Like in the past, you've got a little bit, and a little bit can help out. It's money out there that is raised from, if you, probably most of you have boats, when you register your boat, you pay a LAIR fee. That money goes back into a pot and is distributed out to the public lakes to take care of problems like dredging and vegetation. So it goes back to the source, which is kind of rare with some of your tax dollars. Been kind of on a normal, steady amount of vegetation lately. We used to think, Bob and I used to think it was more an up and down. We'd hit it real hard and we'd get a couple years control, but lately we've seen more of a steady level of vegetation, which I think is a lot easier for you guys budgeting and planning, but Mother Nature doesn't always cooperate, so you need to stay vigilant on that, which you guys have always done. And I put on here, this is before I knew you guys had a drawdown, I put on the notes that don't give up on your drawdown, because I think it's been effective some years when you've got to get freeze, so everything's set up well with the drawdown and with what it's probably doing with your milfoil population. That's all I got. I don't have a whole lot because we didn't do a whole lot this year, but and these guys stay on top of it pretty well. So any questions?
I only have one. I learned from you today that you can treat our plants with the liquid or with crystals. Are the crystals as effective as the liquid?
If you're doing real small areas, the granulars are more expensive
Yeah.
and harder to put on,
Yeah.
but if you're doing real small areas, it works better to
Because
use.
they don't drift around.
Right. And we have, on occasion, used granulars in.
But they're just as effective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which chemical is that?
The Renovate comes in granular. The Aquathol also comes in granular form too, but it is it's like 5 times the expense for the granular Aquathol. Yes, sir.
How many consecutive days below freezing do you need to kill milfoil?
It's not so much the freezing, it's just, and there's no real great scientific data on it, but it's just real good hard freeze deep. Those wintering structures can be down a few inches, so you need a freeze that can really get down there. Then you get the freeze and the thaw that kind of breaks up that. Basically, it overwinters with almost like a little vegetative structure called like a root crown. It looks like a real small, just large stem. So we break that up a few times with some freezes and thaws, and that can destroy the plant. It doesn't have the ability to grow. So. But it can survive. A lot of people think you get a real good freeze on a lake, and that's going to do great for milfoil. You're not going to have milfoil next year. Well, milfoil's more adapted for cold weather. It's from Eurasia, northern Eurasia, so it's grown underneath ice for. That's how it lives, and as soon as that ice is out, it'll come up. So just because you get a cold winter, it's not going to affect it. But if you have a cold winter and you've drawn it down, that's where you get the effect.
Because I've seen Corps of Engineer reports that say you need 30 consecutive days below freezing with a drawdown of at least 30 days prior to the freeze for adequate dewatering. My question is, you said we had a good summer with weeds. We didn't do a drawdown. Why?
Because last fall, when going into last fall, there wasn't much milfoil. We did some large-scale treatments the year before, got real good control of the milfoil, so there wasn't much left out there. We're not going to get rid of all of it. You don't have, that would be a ridiculous expense. But going into the fall, you had very little. The sun, you didn't have a lot of sunlight there to start off. It just didn't take off very quick, so you didn't have much surviving from the year before. So that's my guess. I can't tell you exactly. But that's,
Okay, and most of the milfoil that we're treating is still underwater, correct?
what do you mean?
With the drawdown that we have right now
No, most of it's shoreline. Most of the stuff we treat is near shore.
in the East Bay?
Yeah, but with 3.5 feet, I mean, we're still treating milfoil, and,
In
4,
the
5,
East
6
Bay.
feet.
Yeah, there'll still be areas that aren't exposed. But a lot of those treatments, we're pretty close to shore this year.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you, Nick.
Real quick, I'd like to say it's been a pleasure working with Bob. I work with a lot of conservancies, a lot of associations, and they come, they go. There are people who work there for a couple years, and the first year I worked for him, I was scared to death. He was, I think if you know Bob, you could probably see why you'd be scared to work. I've heard stories about it from my predecessor, but it's been a real good relationship. Very entertaining at times, too.
That's what we want to hear.
Yeah, the entertaining time. In your packet is a operating agreement, LLCD Aquatic Vegetation Control. It's a one-year contract. It is for $50,000. The price of chemicals go up every year. For glycophosphate, it went up $7. That's what we use on the Lotus and the Spatterdock. Aquathol went up $9 an acre, and Renovate went up $5.40 to $5.45, $10. I still think we have a really good price on our chemicals, and I just think we have an outstanding applicator who has been the only applicator I've used since 1996. Knows the lake, knows our pockets, knows where we're at. I would highly recommend we approve this contract.
I move that we approve the contract.
Thanks, Sue. Is there a second on
I
this?
second.
Dennis seconded it. Any more discussion on it? All those in favor of approval of the 15 vegetation agreement, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, Nick, thank you.
Okay, John, I think it's back to you.
And I'm going to pass it to Tina.
Well, actually, I'm going to let Bob give an introduction for Jeff Eman, who's here. I think we,
Right, all right, I can do that.
yeah.
Do you want to go over, have him give his presentation first, then go over the
I
recommendations?
think that would be a good
Okay.
idea, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jeff Eman with Image Matters is here. We had hired Jeff to be our consultant when it came to making sure that the big bathymetry sedimentation study we did was online and on target, and there had to be several revisions that were made. The bathymetry and sedimentation study is very scientific, above my pay grade or intellect in most of the areas, and you need somebody like Jeff who knows this stuff to kind of make sure the process moves forward. This will be online, but here is the final study of the bathymetry and bathymetric study that we paid for, and they're all colored and they're kind of hard to get printed up. They're expensive, so this will be online that you all can go ahead and review at your leisure. Jeff's going to kind of summarize that, and then also online will be reports that Jeff had submitted that we gave to the DSG and the board that shows what he's done and where we're exactly at right now. So with that, Jeff Eman. Also, by the way, folks, just to let you know, and there's really no conflict of interest here, but Jeff is also on the CBU board. He's a board member of the water company, the owner of the lake. So he also has a vested interest in us succeeding out here.
Thanks, Bob, and you've never scared me yet. So.
Just wait.
Yeah, I guess there's time. I'm Jeff Eman. I work for a company called Image Matters, based out of Leesburg, Virginia, but the president of the company and I have been here since 2004 working, and we just opened an office about a year ago. So we have a staff and an office now in town, which is exciting for us. But I've been working with Bob in the Conservancy District almost since its inception. They had me come out pretty early on and at the recommendation of Bill Jones and help them develop their GIS. And then when there was this idea about doing the first bathymetry study, and there's a timeline here on the bottom of the one-page summary sheet that I'm going to kind of walk through. Bob asked me to get involved and help review that first report, and we found some issues at that time with the data source that they used for their shorelines. We got that straightened out and spent a little bit of time on just helping them make sure they had a good product from Aerometrics that first time around. And then subsequently, Bob worked with myself and another gentleman, Nathan Eaton, to take the data from that first study and come up with these different sediment removal areas that we now have 68 of. and look at, what would it take to remove the sediment so we got down to 4 feet in the boat access areas and 5 feet in the boat safety areas and boat channels. And then create a number of different maps, the larger maps that you see on the wall in the office that have been available online at different times, and the fishing map as well. Then early last year, Bob contacted me and said, hey, we really want to do another study. We'd like you to help us identify qualified bidders. So we developed a list of requirements. I contacted 6 different companies. Remetrics was the only one that actually responded with a full proposal. So we, again, you guys contracted them to do the study. So I helped with the planning phase of that. And then came on to review their report and their data products when that was available back in August. In October, I gave Bob a report on my review of the study and some things that we felt Remetrics needed to address, 8 particular items. We met with them and got them to address those items. Then the next thing that we did was came up with a second study of these sediment removal areas. What's changed in those sediment removal areas and how much sediment's left and would need to be removed to get down to the 4-foot level in the dock access areas and the 5-foot level in the boating safety and boat channels. So that report was released a couple weeks ago, and we've been working with James and Bob subsequent to that to develop a map series so that you guys have map references for each of the 68 sediment removal areas. So that's pretty much my work today. I did want to summarize the report for you and then answer any questions about the report, the data that was produced by Remetrics that I can speak to, the products that we've produced for these sediment removal areas. So just looking at this one-page document, you can see that the surface area of the lake has decreased 50 acres, a 3.4% decrease, mainly in that east end where these new islands are forming. And the last, yes?
The 50 acres, that means there's no water in that 50 acres, not that it's just shallow.
There's no water now. That there are some questions about the delineation of those acres because when I look at the aerial photography, it looks like there's some areas that you would maybe consider wetlands. At some times of the year there's water there, at some times there's not. So there's probably some gray area there where some of that area could still be considered lake, although it's wetland and not open water anymore. At certain times of the year. So at least when Remetrics, using the aerial photography that they use that's taken at a certain date, they classified 50 areas of the lake that were open water in 2003, not open water in 2014. So, but you go back, you got some spring aerial photography and the water's up, you may get a different number there.
Well, then the lake level changes too.
You get a bit of expansion outward. So it is dependent on the date and the source of that aerial photography. The water volume has decreased 6.2% in terms of acre feet. So that's the total volume that the lake holds. The average depth has decreased 0.2 of a foot. The maximum depth has decreased from 30 to 27 feet, so the deepest points have filled in quite a bit. Hypothesized that that's due to the large flood event that occurred coming down Bean Blossom Creek. Another important statistic is the surface area where there is water depth greater than 6 feet has decreased about 30 acres. The soft sediment volume has increased, and that would be expected, about 10%. The sediment bed thickness has increased slightly. So there's 2 data products that were produced. One, the bathymetry, where's the bottom of the lake, and then they used a probe to get at how deep the sediment is. Now, they couldn't probe everywhere on the lake, but they probed 300 sampling points. I forget how many exactly it was. They went around
450.
450, that's right, they increased it this last time. So then they took all their point locations and interpolated from those. So it's not, they don't have full lake coverage, but what we try to do is make sure that they were taking samples in all of the important areas. And then overall, the soft sediment thickness, where depth is less than 6 meters, didn't show any change. Now there may be a number of there are a number of reasons for that. One, there was probably better information collected. More sampling probe locations were involved in the most recent study. There was a loss of area of the lake, so it's possible that some of the deeper sediment areas are now considered dry land. And several other confounding factors there, so it's really hard to know, if indeed there is actually no change. And then the sediment removal area analysis for the 68 sediment removal areas, and those are for the dock access, the boating channels, and the boat safety areas. 2 different types of analysis were performed. One, just looking at that sediment thickness, how many cubic yards of sediment are in the SRAs? And then the total material removal volume, that is simply a calculation of if we needed to get the depth cut down to 4 feet in the dock, 4 feet of depth in the dock access areas and 5 feet of depth in the boat safety and boat channels, how much sediment would need to be removed. And you can see that there's a large increase in the amount of sediment that would need to be removed, and that's not wholly unexpected. So those are the highlights of the Vermetrics work and the work that we did in the sediment removal study, and I'm here to answer any questions.
These numbers are cubic feet, right?
What's that?
The numbers in this chart, this graph, or the table is cubic feet. Is that correct?
These are cubic yards.
Cubic yards. Okay, that's what I asked.
One of the deliverables that has been completed, and again, we'll be getting up on the website, is we now have a new sediment removal mapping plan for the lake, and you'll be able to interact with it and see it on our website. These areas over here are the 68 individual service zones that we have around the lake, and one of the deliverables that is yet to be completed is that we are going to do an individual map for every one of these service zones. Of these 68 service zones, it's going to be your particular area, where you're at on the lake, where it's at. And one of the things that we want to get accomplished tonight with Jeff is that how do we want to show, or what kind of information do we want to show on these each individual areas? For example, some of these areas we've already dug. We know how many cubic yards we've dug out. Well, we want that to be on that particular map. So when you go to the website, you can see, well, in 2010, they removed 750,000 cubic yards out of service zone 304, or whatever the case may be. You can compare it with what the current depth of the channel is, or whatever the case may be. So we've taken this to another level this year with this report. We're going to have this overall general map, and then we're going to have a map for each one of these areas.
I see some red areas from this distance. Does that mean that those are the areas that have been done already, dredged?
No, those means that's land.
Land?
Yeah,
as I said, I'm looking at from this distance.
so that'll be getting up on the website. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that the colors in that, the going from the almost yellow to tan to red, those are just really shallow areas on that particular map showing the water depth.
These are particularly useful. I mean, if you're going to make 68 of them, who's going to do it, and how much is it going to cost us?
It's already paid for.
It's already paid for. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent.
So my subcontractor, Nathan Eaton, who's been working with you guys for 10 years, he's going to, he produced those draft maps.
Yeah, those are great.
Yeah, so he's ready to crank those out. I was just looking for any comments you guys might have on the format or the information that's included. We work with Bob and James on the drafts, so.
On here, when it says minus 10 that means that the water's 10 feet.
10 feet deep there. Yes.
Are those on the website?
They haven't all been produced yet. No, but they will be.
They will be.
Yeah, yeah.
What's the timeline on that?
This is wrong.
I think it'll take Nathan just a couple weeks to get those out, now that we have the template and all, all the data. He just needs to, zoom to a new area, put that table that's on the bottom, he'll need to plug that in, and then, print PDF. So a couple weeks.
Have you done this kind of study on other lakes as well?
I have not.
No, okay, so-
I worked with you guys last time, and my expertise more general in GIS.
Yeah.
I'm a generalist.
Yeah.
Worked in a lot of different areas, and
No, I was just gonna ask how things changed in 11 years here compared to how they changed at other lakes in the same 11-year
yeah,
period. Okay.
Doug Henderson from Remetrics, he would really be the person
Okay.
to be able to answer that. Yeah.
The study didn't include any spillways or, that little lake that's off of the causeway by Snook Harbor.
They monitored.
Did they monitor that too?
It's on the map.
Okay,
Can't
well, I
really
saw
see.
the big picture of it, but I didn't know if it was monitored at all.
Yeah, they took
They did?
measurements out there.
Oh, neat. Okay.
What did they do to walk around?
Yes, go ahead and ask Jeff.
Yeah, Jim, I don't know anything about these studies. Does this give a person enough information to be able to look at things and kind of try to figure out what's the best way for how to prioritize things, improving the rate? And then a follow-up to that is, how long should we wait before, doing as much work as we can, to follow up with another study to see where we are again? How many years should it lie? That's kind of it.
To answer the first question, I think that the study provides good planning level information for, the dredging study group, and they're really the ones that need to set the priorities based on, the charter of the LLCD, the principles in which it was formed to provide access to the lake, and whatever those are, those need to go into formulating those priorities on where the dredging takes place, and there's a fixed budget, so we know generally that the back end fills in quicker than the deeper areas, so I'm sure they'll take all that into consideration when deciding on priorities for future years on what gets dredged. There's also the issue of the big barge and the smaller barge that I heard discussed in the last DSG. So there's a lot they're trying to figure out. I'll let them speak to that. But in terms of moving forward, I think every 10 years is probably an adequate duration to wait for another full study. There are other things that you could do in the interim, and that would be looking at the shoreline change and how fast you're losing land in the back end. It's fairly easy, much less costly than to do a full bathymetry study, just have someone go in on the aerial photography, which our aerial orthoimagery resources are really, really good. And the National Agricultural Inventory Program, they have free imagery every summer. So you could almost for a really not a lot of money, get a yearly update on what's happening to that back end of the lake, and being able to assess how quickly changes are taking place back there. But I think Doug Henderson would be the one to talk about what benefit different organizations are seeing by doing updated, full-blown bathymetry studies at different frequencies. Maybe his experience says that 8 years is optimal, or 12 years is optimal. I'm not really qualified to say that, but I know that there are other smaller things that you could be doing along the way to assess the changes that are taking place.
I have two quick questions. One thing that I've been doing is I go around the lake with my pontoon boat. I know what my depth gauge says when it's parked in 3 feet of water, so it's calibrated. But the question is silt does silt behave like water, or does it behave like ground? So when I read 3 feet someplace that has 2 feet of silt, am I gonna read 5 feet or 3 feet?
Well, I think that really depends on the device, and what I can speak to is the devices that Remetrix used. And they calibrated such that it's hitting the soft sediment surface and giving a reading of the bottom.
Okay.
So that's the way they calibrated their instruments to get the bathymetry data.
So a good thing would be to take the boat where there's a couple feet of sediment to see what it says.
Yes,
Okay.
and then, you know, that's why they did their probing to see below that.
Right.
How far did they get till they hit the hard pan bottom or the hardened bottom?
Great.
Yeah.
Call me when you want to go.
Did the study also
Call me
include
when you wanna go.
channels that are on the lake?
I do it every couple of weeks. 'cause I'm
Sediment
out
depth and
hunting.
everything?
Yes.
So you know how
it
much volume
did.
of sediment needs to
But,
come
yeah,
out of there?
fine.
Those
I'll jump in and show
channels,
you how much I sink.
in terms of the route that they took
Well, I do it
with
so that I don't
both
run my boom boat
to
into
do
something.
the sonar, they did spend a considerable amount of time in the channels and going up and down the channels to get data for those areas. For the rest of the lake, they did, if you see the study, they show all of their transects, where they took the boat to get the sonar. And you'll see they went back and forth across the main body of the lake. In the channels, they went up the channels, so they get pretty good, or I should say very good readings of the relative depths along the entire length of the channels. Anywhere where you go right up close to the shore, their instrumentation doesn't work in extremely shallow water. And it doesn't, they can't get the boat that close. So they take the shoreline as the zero value, zero depth, and then they take their reading and they interpolate between those two values. So they're you know, and depending on what techniques they use, you know, you're gonna get slightly different morphology of that slope between the shore and where they're taking the reading. But in the channels in particular, I think they have really good information. Yes.
Tina has a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was just going to tag into something that he was saying and something you were saying about how often do we study. There was a group that we had come to the DSG group that, if you remember, Becca Caldwell and the Department of Geological Services at IU, they were doing a study on the Delta, if you remember that. They also stated that they have grad students that they would love to send out here periodically to do those type of imagery studies, to be able to do any kind of like that. And there would be no charge for us. We couldn't hold them, you know, to a science of, you know, their findings, but it would certainly be helpful, you know, to keep track of those type of studies and those things. And I think that was something that the DSG is certainly up on, and we certainly want to follow up on that and make sure that even every couple of years is do some sort of comparison study with that and involve the geological department in that atmosphere. So
Is that the Delta Formation study still in progress?
yes, it's still.
Sure.
My personal opinion is that I don't think 10 years is enough benchmark what your progress is going to be. I think you need to do it sooner. That's just my personal opinion. Because I'm 60, that'll be 70. So we need another 10 years to figure out if we're making any progress or not.
Yeah. Well, again,
still need your
the guy that you guys hired, well, the company that you hired, Remetrix, and their president, Doug Henderson, he came here before in the summer when you guys approved the budget for his study. I imagine that if there was an opportunity to do another study, not 10 years from now, but 5 years from now, he'd certainly be willing to come down and talk to you about his experience on all the other lakes that he's worked on in terms of what that optimal time frame is and why, provide reasons why. So, you know, that's not something I could do, but, you know, I'm sure the board could make that invitation. Yes.
So Dennis mentioned that he's got the thing on his boat, which I've seen before, the depth finders, right? So say we got a really good depth finder. Couldn't we do random checkups ourselves yearly? Or we can send Dennis out?
I haven't been recording it, but I just go see like where the buoy lines are. I like to see what the water is, and you know, when it says it's 2 feet of water, I'm churning up mud, you know, when I'm next to a buoy.
There's people that once you have this,
Yeah.
and you say, okay, here's 9 feet, and you can go on your boat and see if yours registers 9 feet, what it registers, and then we can send you there
Yeah.
Every 3 months, the next 10 years, so we can afford the next 30,000.
Just fill the boat up with some beer.
Yeah, that's right, that's right. We could get a good, I mean, could we, our office buy a really good depth finder and just keep a general track of it?
I mean, I'm not going to speak for what
Yeah.
they could do or not want to do, but certainly that's an option.
That's an option.
But basically, the thing to do is put your boat where you know where the depth is and what kind of depth is, and calibrate it. Now, it's not gonna be perfect, it could be good only to 6 inches or
Well,
so,
we
but at
need to
least it gives
record
you an
and keep track
idea.
of the sediment, and if we had our own thing,
Yeah.
in between those 10-year or 8 years, because they cost $30,000,
Yeah.
we could be keeping track, a general, not a specific.
I think
one.
individuals could do that in their own areas. There's, you know,
I think-
everybody's got a depth finder on their
I
boat.
think everyone is pretty aware
Yeah.
of what's going on in their particular area.
Well, on the lake, I mean, on weekends, cruise around the lake in my boat, and I tell you, there's places I can't go that I used to. I know that, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So the other thing I read in this report, which I was a little kind of disappointed in, is that the technology used in 14 is better than the technology used in 203, and that the comparisons from the 2 years isn't exactly reliable. I mean, what kind of reliability factor would you put on this, on the comparisons that you have now?
That's $1 million question, yeah.
And that's going to happen again in 10 more years.
Well, yeah, you know, they did use the same technology, but when they took the data and did the interpolation, the morphology of the slope of that,
Right.
the lake bottom between the shoreline and where they have data, they used a different technique this time. They used a different analyst and a different technique. And we made it very clear to them that we wanted a statement in the report of why they made that choice. And they said they used a much more experienced analyst this time, and they used the best interpolation methods possible. So there was a trade-off. Do we ask them to do something that's not as good like they did in 2013? So, you know, moving forward, we decided, hey, yes, we'll accept that. And, you know, we got the best product we can have in 2014, although it's not exactly the same way as it was done in 2003.
So the
which would have been
comparison,
nice.
I mean, as a scientist, the comparison should have error bars on it.
Yeah.
How big are the error bars? That was my question.
Yeah, and we did not calculate error bars.
Okay.
We didn't have much of a basis to do it.
It's a wet noodle, it's hard to do.
Yeah.
In tagging on here, part of our recommendation is the sediment removal committee. We met on Saturday and we got to ask Jeff all these questions and go over the map, and he explained them all pretty thoroughly with us. And he, at that time, brought up these maps. There were 3 samples of maps depicting each area of the zone of the area for review. And we looked at a report that was done by Nate Eaton from Image Matters, and it included in that report all of the service zones on here. And it talks about what the difference is, the sediment difference from 2014 to 2013. The one in parentheses are the ones you can guess that there is it's less sediment, and these are areas that we've probably dredged. So this is something that we were asking, could this be on these maps for us to see where we dredged, what year we dredged, how much we took out, and where the comparison was. So that was something that we were recommending that the board review the sediment removal area maps and approve a production of 68 maps with this information included. And then any design informational changes can be made if you guys have any other ideas. But basically, I would like to make a motion that we approve these 68 maps, that we can do these, and with this kind of information on it.
We already paid for it, right?
We have already paid for it,
So we
yes.
would get it anyway.
Well, but she's asking for the formatting. If you take a look at the individual.
The formatting is excellent. I like
Yeah,
that.
all the
okay.
different boxes in the bottom and all of that,
Great.
right?
If you guys, if we like that type of formatting, and we would add on there what areas were dredged, how much was taken out at that time.
Doesn't one of the samples already have that? edited?
Yeah, I think they do. Yeah, I
Right.
just wanted to be clear that those were,
Right.
that would be included in it. So it'd be easier for you to follow when you were on, if you go online and you say, oh, my area got dredged in whatever year, and then you can see.
I think we need as much information.
Yeah, and I think, you know, whatever information we get on there,
Well,
we get.
when you're delivering where you're gonna dredge every year, that kind of information is.
So do I have a
Yeah, you've made the motion. Is there a second to her?
I second.
Sue seconds that. Is there any more discussion on that? Well, then all those in favor of these maps being prepared, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Okay.
No.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks. We'll chit chat tomorrow and we'll finalize the format, but I think we're there. All right.
To continue on, like I said, we did meet on Saturday. I'd like to thank those members for coming in. It's a good group. We have some recommendations for the board to review. One of the things we talked about was still the purchase of a small barge. At the September 18th, 2013 board meeting, that we had recommended the purchase of a small barge. The board consensus advised this committee continue studying and building of the smaller barge, proceeding with the process of a new sedimentation and bathymetric study. At that time, that's what we did, as you can see, and we have our study back. In May of 2014, we at the board meeting, the board approved contracts with Image Matters and Remetrics to do the math and the study. At the June 21st, 2014 board meeting, the board approved $200,000 loan for the purchase of a barge, excavator, and motors. At the July 19th, 2014 board meeting, the board approved a consultant to oversee construction of the barge. We hadn't done any more work toward this, waiting on the finalization of our map. So in 2014, the sediment analysis is now complete. The study shows that the dredge channels are holding up. We have the numbers here, that the numbers that we're dredging, sediment's coming out and staying out. We do show that in most of them, you know, we do need to go back and do some maintenance. There's still some service areas. There's still some folks that can't get out. We have a lot better image of what we need to do, and what we're doing is working. You know, what we are doing is working. It's a proactive method. So, like I said, the study shows the magnitude of our sediment entering in the lake and making a noticeable difference in the East Bay at Reed Point. So with the study completed, the DSG is planning to develop a 5-year and a 10-year sediment removal plan to coincide with the previous sediment removal plan. Hopefully we'll be tentatively presenting that in March of this year. The 5-year plan could include recommendations of revising our sediment removal areas with the new information that we have. Could also include long-term goals of restoring the East Bay, preservation measures, potential increase in funding for the groups, options for mass removal, sediment, those kind of things will be in our 10-year plan. So at this time, the DSG recommends, with the bathymetrics report being completed, that the board give permission to the study group to follow through with the purchase of the small barge. The LLCD would first bid out the purchase of an excavator, followed by the barge and the motors, or motor. The entire purchase process will take several months. In order to get the process moving, the DSG is seeking approval by this board today to go ahead and with a small barge. You can see that the small barge and the big barge, we believe together will be able to make a noticeable difference in this lake for all. So at this time, I'd like to seek a motion that the board approve.
I move that we do this, but there's going to be some discussion, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Okay, thank you. You're moving it or seconding it? Did you?
I made a motion.
Oh, all right, then I guess I'm
Seconding
second.
it. Thank you, Sue.
So, we have a survey committee. And I think before we start spending money on anything, we should get the results of that survey, which will be at the March 1, you know, at the end of the February.
Well, I think in the study.
The survey committee was supposed to be done before March 1.
April 30th.
April 30th. Still, I think if you're going to spend that kind of money, we need to get the input from everybody on this lake through the survey committee.
I think that we've proven over and over again that we still need, we already have consensus, we've had it at all of our meetings, that it is a great consensus that we need a small barge, and I don't know why.
I don't disagree with
I don't
that.
know what
I don't disagree with that,
I don't know what a survey is going to be.
Survey's going to tell you what people think about it.
Well, I think we already know what people think.
No, you don't. Absolutely not. You know what your group thinks about it.
No, we've had meetings where we've had consensus in June, July, and August. Back in everyone has already told us.
No, that's not really true. I mean, if you ever talk to people around the lake besides the people in your area, you'll find out that there is not a lot of
That's
agreement
not
on
really true. The board has asked us over and over again we've been doing this since 2011. Actually, the
when
plan
would you
for the
expect
small
to start
barge has been
spending
on,
money?
excuse me, I still
Yeah, let Tina speak.
Actually, the approval for the small barge has been asked for since 2008, 2009.
I agree.
And, we just keep finding reasons, or excuses not to do it or not to get it. And I don't understand the reasonings for it. When we all know that we're going to get it, I don't know why, what a survey, everybody already knows that we need it. And this is proving that we need it.
It's a no-brainer.
I think some of
the areas now that are even bigger that we need to do.
it's a revenue issue for some of this because we have 2 barges, but we don't have the money to run 2 barges at the same time.
Well,
this is something that came up, because I'm on the survey committee, and it came up during the survey committee that we're concerned about the revenue sources for running 2 barges.
Well,
and dumping it.
Part of our 5-year plan that we were discussing was doing every other year.
Okay, well, see, that's important.
So that's something that we were discussing, is doing every other year, small barge, big barge, doing it every other year, and doing it that way. And then the 10-year plan is also into more funding.
Okay.
And these are things with a foundation and things like this are things that we really need to see. And I think we can get a lot more funding for that. And running 2 barges at the same time is also something that, everybody was wanting to do.
I'd love to do that, but I don't think we have
we don't have the
money
funds
to
for it.
do that.
But we do have the funds. We already have $100,000 set aside for our purchase of probably the small excavator, which is where we need to start. And then we also have $46,000. We could probably get a loan for $46,000 and pay that off within 2 years. So.
Yeah, I'm just bringing it up.
I understand.
So, and there's the issue of cost. You don't know what this is going to cost yet until you get the estimates.
Well,
we could be agreeing to do something for $300,000.
We're agreeing, we have a $200,000 budget so far.
Right.
So we're not agreeing to anything over that anyway. And the excavator will come back into the board, and the board will also approve that. Each step is approved. Right. It's not like we're going to go out and buy anything, but we do have to have the approval of the board to vote for it, to be able to go out and get these bids, because we can't get anywhere with anybody else giving us a bid without.
Can't start dredging without another dredger.
Because they're not going to talk to us anymore. These people who build barges.
Well, when you run into a situation where if you're going to dredge an area, you might start with the larger barge and then work and use it until it doesn't fit, and then move over to the smaller. So it's not like you're going to take a barge and let it sit for an entire season.
No.
Barb?
We getting the $200,000 as a loan?
No, we have $100,000 already set aside from a CD that we've been, and again, it's this,
You're taking it out of the CD funds then?
We've had it for approximately 1.5 years, 2 years. We keep putting it aside. We keep putting it into a smaller CD, but yes, it's there.
90 days.
Yeah, it's in a 90-day CD fund. It's been there for about 2 years.
Yeah, that's true. But then, you want to take out another 2-year loan for $46,000, which limits the amount of dredging we can do in any given year because you're paying back a loan again. We just paid off a loan. I don't disagree that we need a barge, the smaller barge. What I disagree with is that you're going to spend money on this barge, you're going to specify this barge before you have a 5 to 10 year plan and before the people on this lake have had a chance to speak. And not just people that go to the dredge committee meeting, everybody on this lake.
We've had people at the meetings. I get emails. I get from all different districts, not just.
2 years worth of meetings.
And it's not like a big.
There's 500 people on the lake and 10 people come to the meeting. I'm sorry.
That's their fault.
Not only, that may be their fault, but you know what? They're paying taxes, and they should have a voice.
They should be here.
Marty, I can recognize.
I'm just having a quick question. I'm in favor of the barge. I'm in favor of increase in the operation. I think the budget needs to be increased either through fees or other revenues. My primary concern is that when we first started the dredging project, we really realized that we were really trying to accomplish two things. We were trying to restore the lake, and we're trying to get people to their docks. And we always tried to do a little bit of the main lake down by Cemetery Island, the maintenance line, and then channels. My primary concern is it seems like we're not doing anything to the main part of the lake. It seems like, you know, I looked at the $5,000 I've invested personally into dredging, which is about, I have an average size house. I don't see the bang for the buck in terms of just doing channels. I really believe that we would have less controversy, particularly people on the west end of the lake that don't have access problems, if as part of the plan we had a more balanced approach. Because I think about 95% of the budget since we started dredging has been to do what we thought was triage, which was an emergency thing so we could get to the main part of the lake. And when I am going up and down that maintenance line and I see 2 or 3 feet of water and I realize the maintenance line at the east end of the lake really needs to be moved maybe a quarter mile to the west, that's my investment that I'm not getting anything for. So my biggest concern is not that I think we need to buy the barge. I think we need to do chipwood. I don't think we need to get into private-public channels. But I do think we need better balance. And I think we need to start addressing the main part of the lake so that the people that don't have access problems feel like they're getting a return on their investment.
Those are great points, and I appreciate those, Marty, because this is what the Dredging Study Group is coming up with, and we are going forward with what the plan was set for back in 2008, 2009, which is creating access for all boaters, and also taking care of our main lake. I mean, it's going to be balanced. You're going to see it's all going to be fine, because it's not fine, but it will be more equal or more even. You're going to see a lot more taking care of our lake, and then creating access for those who still don't have access. But like I said, in our 5-year plan and our 10-year plan, which is in the process of being written, all of these things are included. But what is included is that, I mean, you hear even Marty say, we need a smaller barge. I mean, there's no doubt about it. No matter if we vote for it today, we vote for it in 4 months from now, or we should have voted for it in 2011, whatever it is, we still need it. And it will balance out what we're doing and what we're trying to do, and you'll see it, and you'll be able to go online and you'll be able to read it for yourself. If you look at these reports, I mean, you can very well see that what we are doing, dredging out these channels, that it is working. You know, so it is a good plan.
Using a large barge, don't we put riprap over the main body of the lake, and plus we use it for debris removal?
Yes.
So the lake is benefiting from the large.
From all, yeah.
Yes.
And it will be, and like I said, the small barge will be able to get to a lot of those other areas, to be able to put riprap in a lot of those other areas as well, all over the lake. So I mean, it's multi-use, and it's just something that, you know, it's something that we need to move forward with, and I'm still seeking the motion.
So where is the revenue going to come from to pay for all that? I mean, all right, $100,000, you have $200,000. You still have $100,000 that you have to come up with, and then you have to operate the barges. So where is all that money going to come from?
It's still the same budget. That budget to operate barges has not increased as of yet. That's something that we would like to see. Like I said, I think in the long term, we would like to see a foundation founded to be able to do that.
Especially when we submit a budget and the State Board of Accounts only doesn't approve the whole budget that we submit. That makes a difference too.
They pretty much do.
Yeah, they approve our budgets.
They didn't approve the total budget we submitted last year for $250,000.
It's already approved, and you just.
Yeah, and if you remember, we did have a line of credit that was approved before. I mean, we have that's fine. I mean, I don't think that.
So we're going to have a loan again as well.
For probably 2 years or less.
Go ahead.
Are we just voting on an approval to get bids for a smaller barge? Is that all you're asking for?
I'm asking the board to make a motion to approve
purchasing a small barge.
Which will be done through the bid procedure.
To the entire
so
purchase
it's
process.
the actual to purchase it and not just approval to get bids only?
No, it's the DSG recommends that the bid out the purchase of the excavator followed by a barge and motor. The entire purchasing process will take several months, but each thing will have to come, I mean, we still have, in my
Yeah, the board will have to approve an excavator bid.
Each step?
Each step.
Okay. So all this other discussion is beyond the first step that needs to take place.
Right.
So if people would recognize that, I think that you have to take the first step to determine where it's going to go.
And again, you know, obviously if this thing's cost us $300,000, as Dennis suggests, we'll either have to go back to the bank or we'll have to decide at that time, well, this is too much, the money that we could spend. I mean, we already have a budget that's approved for $200,000, and, you know, I think that from what we have researched and everything, I believe that we can stay within that budget.
Can I call for the question?
No, you can't.
No, you can't.
You can't.
You cannot. Okay, those are all good words, Tina, but you know, your committee has been in business for 3 years, and you're still telling me you're gonna develop a 5- and 10-year plan. And I'm sorry, I don't believe you anymore. I mean, I want to see the 5- and 10-year plan, and I want to see the input from the rest of this lake before I really can approve anything.
We should have the input from the lake before we ever even get to the individual barge purchasing parts.
Right, but you don't need money to seek bids.
Yeah, we need to have approval from the board to seek bids.
Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with giving you full approval to go buy a barge at this point, without the rest of the input from the lake.
So how do we get input from everybody that lives on this?
Well, you're gonna hear about that in a few minutes.
I thought there was a survey supposed to be done.
You're gonna hear about that in a few minutes.
Yeah, folks, hold on.
We said we need a barge.
Go ahead.
Let's get the barge.
Okay, but there are a lot of more issues besides just buying a barge.
But you can't do any of the other issues without that.
Well, you can get
still need
bids without permission to buy a barge.
We still need the permission from the board to be able to say that we can purchase the barge.
Can we call a question, please?
You're
The
talking
excavator.
about bids. There's a difference between purchase and bids.
Right, big time.
Hold on, folks, I want to get these two hands have a chance.
This survey that you're doing, last time you said that you got a 10% return on it. Do you expect to have any?
Yes, absolutely, I guarantee it.
Why?
Because people are really concerned about what's going on.
Okay.
Okay?
Is this a representative board or not? Do you represent the people? Is this a
Yeah, but I don't tell them what I'm
democratic
gonna
process or
do.
what?
They tell me what they want.
Is this a complete democracy or is this a representative?
It's a
board?
representative government. But I still believe that I need to involve the concerns of the people in my
Have you
district
not
before I
talked to
make
them?
decisions.
Have you not talked to them?
Yes.
Do you not know what they know?
Yes.
Okay, you have a vote.
Wait a minute, I'd like to ask a question.
Barb, there's another
Sue
person.
Miller is our district representative. Barb, this person has-
Somebody over here wants to ask, Sue wants to say something.
We are full-time lake residents. We've been here not as long as many of you, I understand. But somehow in the short amount of time that I've been a lake resident, I know that there's a meeting once a month and that this is where I find out comings and goings of the lake and I can voice opinions and I can, you know, get my word out. Now, if I know that and I'm young and I'm only been here a year and I have childcare issues and work issues and everything else that everybody else has, why are all those same people not here doing the same thing I am? And why is a survey going to be different? Why are you going to get a better result from a survey than people coming? We've all been coming and I've been educated. I advise all of my neighbors and people I know across the lake that, hey, there's a meeting on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, blah, blah. And more people, you know, have gotten the word out and more people are here. So why is a survey going to give you a different result than what you're seeing in this room?
It's a professional organization who's doing it, and people have more access to information than they used to. I mean, everybody has websites. We're hoping to get a better representation of, you know, from people, because we're going to call them, we're going to send out mailings.
Actually, what's going to happen is, if you read the report, and it'll be available, is that this company, Epley, is going to call people and talk to everybody that they can on the lake, representative from every single district, and get opinions from everybody on the lake. Not just one group who has a nice homeowners association who's really hell-bent for leather to get a problem solved in their area.
Let's not try to throw.
I think that's changing a little bit of
That's your situation. We don't know how
Not
people
everybody's
feel
year-round
until we talk to
resident. I am
freeholders. I know we
my
have,
district,
you know,
I'd
enough
say more
people
than
here.
three-quarters are not.
There's a lot of
I
people
wasn't know your
that,
home district from
that
resident.
probably would give you a better answer if they were actually talked to.
Yes.
And I'm hoping we have a better than 10%.
Yes.
I would be surprised if we didn't have a 50.
Are we saying right now that the only thing we're going to do is ask for
bids?
A bid? Is that what we're going to do?
Yes.
Why can't we do that?
We're asking for permission to bid out the purchase of an excavator followed by barge and motors.
Barb, you were gonna
Can
ask
that
me a
be
question, I
worded
think.
that we are
Yes.
asking?
I think it should be worded such that.
The question was, how many of our
Find a bid for later board
freeholders
approval?
in your district have talked to you?
Probably about 20 or 25.
The problem is, I mean, when we have talked to a lot of board designers, a guy in Madison who built the first barge, who's going to help us build this barge. Mac from Madison, it will probably be our person that does it.
Madison,
Yes.
Indiana.
Yes.
Okay.
Other barge builders probably won't even talk to us anymore because we've been doing this since, for a while, talking. And they're like, we don't want to talk to you anymore because we have paying customers. So the more that we put this off, and the more that, we just keep beating around the bush, or we wait for another reason to stop it, or we wait for another thing. I mean, it's just, the board has asked us to do many things, and we've done them, Dennis. It's hard to write things like that, what you're talking about, since we've been at this, and, you asked us to do the study, we did the study. We find out what the study came, you said you would vote for something after you got the results of the study. Well, the study shows, clearly that the barge work is working and that we need, an additional equipment. I don't understand, I understand the purpose of the survey. In fact, the dredging committee was the one that suggested it. So, I think with all of that said, I still believe that, I don't know why we're not going forth with, actively doing this.
Bob stayed on until March 1st to see this process through. He's very knowledgeable.
Yeah.
That's
He
the
helped
other
us
thing that I'm
build the
kinda
first
worried
barge, and
about.
everybody trusted him with that.
Yeah, and management has been involved in this.
Management
They sit
is our-
on the dredging committee, and Bob has assured me that management supports this. Levi supports this. James supports this. I feel like this is a natural progression of a very successful program. This isn't a variation. This is the program that was initiated with the 2006 survey, where the lake freeholders gave the board advice, and the board acted, and Marty's group brought it to life, and we have revitalized neighborhoods with this program. Eidolon has been rescued. Icebox was rescued once. You had a cove in your area that was rescued. Unfortunately, the barge we built cannot handle another very significant neighborhood. So it's just a matter of fairness at this point. These people have been patient. They've waited and sat through interminable meetings. Tina has worked herself over and over again, and I don't think the board is risking anything here, and that's why I support the motion that Tina is making. If we want to amend it to be a bid only, that might be the compromise that moves this thing through and we can move on. That's my point of view.
You have a first and second.
Kim or Sue, would you like to speak?
Go ahead, Kim.
Well, I'm hoping that I keep thinking that we have a new manager coming on, and I don't know whether his input would be valuable or not with this. Given the fact that Marty's going to be taking my seat and he supports this, I think that I probably will support this also, based on the fact that Marty has voiced his opinion. I would like to hear from the new manager, but that probably won't happen until March, right?
That would.
He'll be here February the 4th for the annual meeting, but
that's gonna be just much of an introduction more than anything.
Okay.
Yes.
Bob has also, one more point, Bob has also agreed to go with our group to Madison to help work this process through. I think that's great. I know Bob has offered many things, and I think, you know, this is something that he also wants to see through, and I appreciate that very much, so.
Yes.
I have a question for James. How many excavators have you gotten bids on already and checked on?
Well, we haven't really gotten bids per se. We had McAllister out, John Deere out, and Komatsu. And we basically spoke with them, and you know, back in probably June of last year, and had said, well, you know, we need something at this poundage, this weight. You know, we want these buckets, blah blah blah. We're looking in the the $50,000 to $80,000 range, and you know, they gave us brochures and said, yeah, you know, we have these types of equipment at that range, but you know, they said those excavators are kind of going on and off job sites left and right. So when they bid something out, that excavator is available for, you know, a couple weeks or, you know, maybe a month, but, you know, they can't really give you a bid on, you know, said excavator. But they said within the price range and the weight and what we want, the size, you know, they can find something in that price range.
Are they still returning your phone calls?
They stopped calling. They used to call me. And I
They
call
used to call on a regular basis, and then they realized there was no sale to be made here, so they just stopped. We'd have to.
I told them, you know, and I kind of explained to them, well, things have been delayed because of this and that, and, you know, keep all of our information that we've given you, so they should still, you know, have that in the file on their desk, I would hope.
Susan?
Hi, I may be kicking a dead horse, or it may be obvious to everyone in the room except me, but I think there's a subtle legal issue here that a board such as our board cannot seek bids unless there is intention to pursue that process. That would probably fall under some statute that would put everybody at risk. Now, the intention can change, and the board stops at every point before moving from point A to point B. Am I missing anything there?
No, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so at this point, all you're asking for is, let's get out of the gutter, let's get out there legally and ask for bids with the full intention, knowing that that intention, depending on what the survey may say or what may come from other input, that or the cost could be prohibitive. We would say no. The board can make that choice at each point. Am I missing anything?
No, you're dead on.
Thank you.
You've got to have good faith. You've got to have the board that says, okay, we intend to buy a barge and an excavator, okay? Boom, it's a motion, it's a done deal. Now, bids come back, too much money, don't get it, then it stops the process again, right? But you have to have good faith.
And all the information we've collected is pushing us towards this direction, but should anything change, that can be stopped. So maybe it is time for the board to call.
She's made the motion. It's been seconded. You guys ready to vote?
Yes, sir.
I think the public has been heard. Sue?
I.
No.
Motion.
No.
Nay?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Dennis saying no. Thank you, everyone.
I have one more thing. This is really good news as well. This is due to our sediment problem as to where to put it. Yeah, I have some. But this talks about our Possum Trot disposal site. Well, on Tuesday, January 20th, as you know, John Langley is the City of Bloomington Utilities Department Deputy Director, and we'd asked him last time, if you were at that meeting, can we sell it? Can we give it away? And he was kind of, I don't know, let me find out. I'm not sure if we can do anything with it or whatever. Well, we finally, as of January 20th, Director Deputy John Langley of the CBU has given the LLCD permission to start the process of giving away or selling the CBU sediment deposit at Possum Trot disposal site. So the DSG recommends to the board to give official approval to start the process of giving away and selling of this material at the So at this time, I'd like to make a motion that the board give us permission to start giving away and selling the material at the Possum
Well,
Trust.
the motion just needs to have one thing. You know, we're not gonna do any business really at the annual meeting per se, so that's the March. I can't wait till March to start giving this material away. So when you make your motion, let management take care of the process, but either say we're gonna sell it or we're gonna give it away.
Give it away.
And we will also have Angela Parker come up with indemnification that anybody that comes onto our property, okay, they indemnify us from any damage to their vehicles or anything of that nature, and they'll have to sign that indemnification.
Some of the things-
This will be a staff monitored event. We'll probably have to put it in the newspaper, tell them for the next 3 Saturdays from 9 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon, come to blah, blah, blah. We'll load you up, you can drive away, the sediment's free, that kind of thing. But you must sign a waiver when you get there, okay?
I recommend that we give it away.
Give it-
I think we'll get rid of more of it if we give it away.
With our
Unless
expenses,
anybody wants to keep it.
Just
with
sitting
our
there
expenses
anyway.
covered? When we're giving it away, are we covering the expense of an operator and an
No, of course
excavator?
not. No, we'll be using our excavator.
That's what I mean. Are they gonna pay that?
The labor.
You figure we're gonna spend that money anyway.
We're
moving
gonna
it.
get rid of it.
So.
Yeah, we're gonna-
It's really
gonna
gonna be
save us-
free.
it will save us money in the long run.
John, that time of year, we're moving material up
Okay.
there, everywhere, anywhere.
All right.
It'd be just as nice as moving it to another pile, putting
And
somebody
I
else's
spoke
truck.
with Levi, and he said, you may not think that, giving away, 8 triaxle loads of sediment is that big a deal, but he said that's 8 triaxle loads of sediment that he don't have to put somewhere else. So, I mean,
That's worth a lot.
yes, Marty?
My only recommendation would be if someone was going to use it for a commercial operation, you might put a limit on it so that they would pay, because you don't want, for example, NDOT coming and taking, I mean, I know it'd be great to get rid of it, but, if it's a big operation, you might at least consider thinking about prorating some sort of a cost curve, because the cost, they come in and say, okay, we got 15 triaxles, and that's going to be a cost to us to load them. So, there's a difference between mom and pops and businesses.
On to that, that was brought up in our meeting, and one of the things that we discussed was maybe in a certain time period, give it away, kind of monitor it, see who's taking it, and then, come back and revisit it to see,
Yeah,
okay, who do we want
I
to...
think we'd like to revisit it, see what's happening.
Yeah, so
Right.
that would be something in the
Right.
And the only other
stipulation.
thing is, in terms of chain of accountability, and I'm sure Bob will do this, but when they leave, that's their dirt, because one of the issues is going to be if it gets on the roads.
Right.
The highway department will first call us.
One of the things that we also discussed is maybe they should go through a trucking company so that they have the proper trucks to take it.
Right.
That might
I'm
be
just thinking
something,
there needs to be a big difference between a guy in a pickup truck and
Exactly.
somebody showing up with an NDOT shirt
or a
on.
wheelbarrow. Yeah, we want to make sure that we're careful.
Susan?
I do want to add to what Marty was saying, my concern living on the peripheral of where those people will be driving is that we notify the county offices, particularly highways and enforcement.
Gotta let the highway department know, at least in Brown County, because that's where it's at.
And enforcement, because if somebody does have a spill, or there could be accidents, that kind of thing, just to raise an awareness. And then the second issue relates to liabilities, and I'm sure Angela would come up with this, but once I have that dirt and I take it somewhere, we know there's arsenic in the soil, it's always been there and it'll forever be there. But some sort of, within that waiver.
Oh, it's gonna be
that
in there.
indemnity
It
that
can't be used for
covers us.
food uptake crops.
Okay, all of that would be in the waiver, not just if I hurt my truck, but once I get home, I can't come back and tell you that something in your soil made me sick.
Sue, one of my biggest fears is that, once we go public with this and we're set up and we're geared to go, and all of a sudden, we open up at 9 o'clock on some Saturday morning, and there are 15 triaxle trucks blocking traffic on North Shore Drive.
Yep.
Or 10, or you see what I'm saying? And so there's got to...
And they're coming around my curve and dumping it, yeah.
You might want to have a.
Can they schedule?
So like schedule, right, exactly. Like an appointment
That's why
schedule if that
enforcement
happens.
probably should be
Appointment
worded.
schedule?
Well, I mean, like if so, okay, if you.
We'll just have to see how it.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's something that's definitely going to have to be revisited, over and over. As Marty said, and it was brought up in our meeting too, if somebody comes and starts, really taking it, then we probably want to poke into that and see, okay, now wait a minute.
Let's just hope somebody wants it.
Yeah.
So we'll,
Yeah, I'd like to get paid if they're.
Yeah, I know.
Bob, you want to just do it on a 60-day deal so you can, or you won't, but Adam can look at it in March and tell us where we are?
I'd like to start loading
Oh, I
trucks
mean
before
now.
March.
Yeah.
Does everybody stop on your way out and pick a load
Yeah,
up?
we've got takers, we've got several companies that have already come to
Well,
us and said,
you moved it.
yeah.
Hey, who seconded it?
I did.
Sue?
I'm a troublemaker.
So,
Okay, so basically the motion's gonna be, we approve it for free with an indemnification and contact with the local agencies. All right, very good. Great, what great.
We need a vote.
All in favor?
aye. Any opposed? Okay.
That's all we have at this time. Look forward to the March meeting. Hopefully get a lot more information in for that time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who's got my maps? I need them back when you guys are done looking at them.
Here's one.
Mine's gone too.
I have an
There should be
extra.
2 out there floating around. Okay.
One came right back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Managers report.
In your packet is, and this goes back to the freeholder opinion poll, an agreement with Indiana University Epley Institute, very well known nationally and internationally as an agency that has worked with the National Park Service and Parks and Recreation departments throughout the country. They really jumped at the idea when we approached them about doing a public opinion poll out at Lake Lemon. They've been wanting to find a way to get their foot in the door at Lake Lemon. They think it's a beautiful natural resource. Will probably lead to some future kind of relationships, I would think, down the road. I told them we didn't have a budget for it. I threw out $1,000. They said, done deal. They're going to do it. They're basically giving us this service, I think. We had also approached the Center for Research at the School of SPIA. They turned us down. They couldn't do it within the $1,000 budget, but I think Epley's probably going a little bit above and beyond with that. So a sound company, a sound organization associated with IU, $1,000 contract. The timeline would be to, once the board approves this contract, is to have the survey committee meet with their project manager. Probably will be 2 or 3 meetings involved, and we'll set down the processes and the questions, length of time, things of that nature, and get this thing rolling. The contract says they need to be done by April the 30th. I'm hoping they'll get done sooner than that. And I think there'll be a combination that you'll be able to go online and take this survey. Some people that aren't online will mail some surveys out. There'll be a combination of approaches, I think, that you'll be able to do this. So we would recommend the board approve this $1,000 agreement with the Epley Institute.
I move that we approve the agreement with that.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of approval of the Epley proposal, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
In your packet, one-page extension agreement for mowing services of the park, dam, spillway, all of our parking, all of our mowing needs. This is with Nate Anderson, Excavating and Lawn Care. Nate has been our contractor for this now for 4 years. This will be the 5th and final year of this agreement that had 4-year extensions. As long as he did not raise his cost or his price to us, which he has not now for 5 years. Outstanding contractor, very dependable, very reliable, does a fine job. And his price of $10,875 is just dirt bottom. I mean, that is really good, and it's been that same amount for 5 years. Going forward, this particular agreement will need to be bidded out next year. You'll need to go out and get some other contractors to quote you on what it would be to do it. I would totally and heartily recommend that we approve this last year extension for Nate Anderson to do our mowing services for $10,875.
I'll move we extend the agreement.
Second.
Any discussion?
I think he does a great job.
Yeah, he does. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You got it. Any opposed? Okay, Sky Magic.
In your packet is a 2-year proposal with Sky Magic Pyrotechnics Inc. To provide the 4th of July fireworks celebration show. He's been our contractor now for several years. He's done a really fine job. He has not raised his price, $6,500, the same thing we've been getting it for years and years. This year's 4th of July show will be on Friday night, July the 3rd, with a rain date of July the 4th, which is Saturday. We haven't determined the 2016 date yet. Another really good contractor. By signing the 2-year agreement, if you'll see in your packet, he's added on some additional bombs and additional fireworks at no extra cost or whatever the case may be. I would recommend that the board renew this 2-year agreement. Next year would also be $6,500, so it's only, the price will not go up in year 2. It'll be the same amount of money. I would recommend that we approve a contract with Sky Magic Pyrotechnics for the fireworks celebrations for 2 years at a cost of $6,500 a year.
I'd like to make that motion that we approve the Sky Magic Pyrotechnics fireworks display.
Sue seconded it. All those in favor of approval of the Sky Magic, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Bob, will you get him his money early enough to get the bonus package?
We did, we got it all.
Great.
Yep.
I suspect 2016 it'll be around 4th of July, don't you think?
Oh no, we're gonna have it in April.
Labor Day.
I'm going to turn over the rest of my report now to James, considering James did the brunt of the work on putting the DNR Lair grant together. He's done all the number crunching on the barge operation this year, and we have sheets in your packet on that, and he'll give you an update on the winter drawdown on what the lake level is as of today. So with that, James?
All right, DNR Lair grant proposal. We sent in our proposal a couple weeks ago. They're due the end of this month. We probably won't hear back until April or May at the very earliest, I would think. We asked for $34,000, $30,000 in weed treatment, $4,000 in planning and tier 2 surveys. As Nate said earlier, we may not get all that, but you know, the $34,000 would be a great addition to our weed budget next year. We would be responsible for covering 20% of the costs. It's an 80-20 agreement, like most DNR Lair grants are. So cross our fingers and hopefully we get something. Barge operations summary. You should have 4 pages in front of you. The 5 pages, there's also a cubic yard cost. I'll go through these kind of quickly. 2014 lake debris removal. We spent about 58 or 55 hours in staff costs. We estimated the fuel at about 45 hours. Contractual and rental services, we spent $443 to rent a skid steer and $700 in a contract with Kenny Mullis to help remove a lot of the debris that accumulates at the east end of the Long Causeway. Last year we had that pretty much fully contracted out, and we had another guy rent all the equipment. It cost us about $3,000. So with our small agreement with Kenny and Levi running the skid steer, we ended up saving about $1,500 in debris removal for the Long Causeway. Overall, cost for debris removal this year, or last year, was $5,237 and change, and in 2013 we spent a little over $8,000. So with all the debris we had this year, we actually did pretty good as far as the budget reason.
Yes, you did.
Moving on to shoreline stabilization or riprap. Mostly this year we did a lot of private work. We did do 180 feet of CBU shoreline over by Michelle Marina. And everywhere else, like I said, was private work. So total cost was $11,417 and change. However, riprap is a cost neutral thing. So the freeholders actually paid us $10,547. So in the books, it looks like we spent, or we did spend $11,417, but we actually got most of that money back. Any questions on any of the first two reports?
I have a question. Okay, fuel prices are coming down. Won't we save a little money?
Yeah, and we can actually see that. If you look, we budgeted 14,000. We only spent 10 this year.
Yeah,
so.
it's a lot less now.
Yeah, diesel hasn't, I'm not.
No, yeah,
diesel hasn't come down a whole lot.
bit now, but yeah, it's still, it's still.
Do you know how many freeholders took advantage of the?
Because I need that.
Of the
What?
riprap? 5.
5?
4.
4.
2,500 each, more or less.
Yeah, it kind of depends on,
Right.
how much stone you want and how much work had to be done. But yeah, they all averaged out more or less close to the same.
The riprap is delivered with the barge, right?
Correct, yes.
And the CBU, they refund us too or pay for that?
No, if we do CBU shoreline, that's on LLCD dime.
We leased it. It's ours until they take it back.
Unless this is CBU shoreline, if your house had CBU shoreline in front and you wanted it riprap, you'd have to pay. This is CBU shoreline that is not developed per se. So over by the dam, there's a lot of CBU shoreline. There's no subleases. We'll riprap that. Okay, attachment C, sediment removal. For the dredger and assistant dredger, it was about 380 hours and 355 hours respectively. We were a little bit under budget this year, or we spent a little bit less than we had budgeted this year. There was a lot of repair and maintenance that was done. We spent a lot of time with riprap and debris, so that kind of is the reason for that number being a little low. Supply cost, diesel fuel, about $5,700. Budgeted $14,000. That includes all the fuel that would be included in the debris removal and riprap and any of the other line numbers. Dredging supplies, we spent $16,855. Most notably, this was the hydraulic pump that we replaced for the excavator, and we also replaced a turbo on the excavator, which was a decent little cost. We also had a push boat. We had a shaft for the push boat remanufactured. So dredging supplies were up. We had budgeted $9,000. As some of you know, the what do you call them on the articulated truck? The hydraulics that lift the bed on the hydraulic
Cylinders.
Thank you. The hydraulic cylinders on the articulated truck are starting to go out. So that was one of the reasons we had dredging supplies up so much, and we ended up not doing that and spending the repairs on the excavator. Services and charges, insurance. This is basically just the insurance premiums that cover all of the barge equipment, the barge, excavator, push boat, articulated truck, dozer, dually, all that kind of stuff. Repair and maintenance, we spent $4,557 and change. Mostly this was having Komatsu come down and help with the repair of the hydraulic pump. That was a big job. So they were down, I think, about a day and a half. Again, we had $7,000 budgeted, which goes back to the hydraulic cylinders on the articulated truck. Loan service, we had budgeted $46,000, and we obviously paid off the dredging premiums that were due in early 2015. So last year we spent $69,141 on the loan service. So when you add all that up, we spent $124,542 on dredging, and if you take out the extra $23,000 and change that we spent on the 2015 dredging premiums, we spent about $101,400 in dredging. So we're about right on budget with our $100,000 sediment removal program.
How many yards did we remove this year?
We removed, I'll get to that, but we removed 12,500. Possum trout disposal site preparation. Prep gets a little difficult every year because we keep filling it up. Luckily now we can start getting rid of it. Dredger, 210 hours, assistant dredger, 168. We used a little bit of stone just on the road. A lot of times we'll use a lot more stone than that, but this past year we did not. We have our diesel fuel estimated there. Contractual equipment rental, we had the overhead crane guy come out twice. They come out in the spring to put the counterweight back onto the excavator, and they come back out in the fall to take the push boat out and do some other things. So grand total for disposal site prep, $14,470. That's about on par with previous years. Other staff costs, equipment maintenance, $3,600. Private dredging, $1,284. Office work, $898. That's like DSG meetings or, talking to the office, ordering parts, that kind of thing. And moving on to the last page, the 2014 sediment removal program summary. This is basically a breakdown of our cubic yard costs. We dug in 2 areas. The first priority was service area of 130, and that was the northeast shoreline of Reed Point. We removed 7,300 yards, and we have completed that entire channel. Once we got that done, we moved on to the access channel leading to Point Eidolon, service zone 302, and we completed that channel and removed 4,500 yards. And we removed 7 loads from service area 130 by Reed Point. That was private work, and so that takes our total up to 12,500 yards for the year, which is a pretty good amount.
It is.
I've broken down the cubic yard cost here. This is based on 11,800 yards that we've removed because the other 700 was private work and is kind of broken down differently. Cost per cubic yard based on the 2014 sediment removal financial summary, $8.59 per cubic yard. If you include the 2015 dredging loan we paid off, it goes up to $10.55. And if you include the sediment removal program, the 2015 dredging loan, and disposal site prep, we were up to $11.78 per cubic yard. So that paying off the 2015 dredging loan beefed those numbers up just a little bit.
Paying it off.
Any questions on the barge operations summary, cubic yard cost, anything? All right, and my last part's pretty easy, winter drawdown. We opened the gate December 2nd. We did close it, or Bob closed it, I'll give him credit, by himself. Saturday, December 27th, it's my mom's birthday, so I didn't want to come down. And we had some rain right after that, so the lake came back up and we reopened it, I think, later that week. And we have since closed it on January 16th, last Friday. We were about 2 or 3 inches over 3.5 feet. And right now we're at 40 inches. So we're coming up a little bit. I think the ice melting on the sides is kind of bringing it back up and the water coming in. So right now we're basically right at where we wanted to be, 40 inches, a couple inches less, but we'll see.
Have you had any feedback from the freeholders? Is it good, bad, indifferent?
Not yet. The ice is not
Ice
moving.
hasn't started moving yet.
Just checking.
Good for me.
Good.
I guess that concludes my report.
Thank you.
I have a grant question.
Yep.
I've been doing some research, and the Natural Resources Conservation Service is a federal government service. Have you guys researched any funding from them? Okay.
What's her name?
It's the NRCS, it stands for Natural Resources Conservation Service. We actually have a representative in Indianapolis. Her name is Jill Reinhardt. And her telephone number is 317-295-5883. They're a watershed authority, and they will also approve grants if you've been hurt by floods. So, and I just heard the man say that one of the reasons that we filled back in was because of a flood. 2 significant floods within 10 years puts us on the list. They have $1.2 billion of public-private partnership money to give away.
You could take some of that.
Yeah. One more time, Natural Resources.
It's the Natural Resources Conservation Service. It's formerly known as the Soil Conservation Service.
That rings a bell.
And
I don't know what that has to do with lakes.
if you just Google NRCS, Bob or James,
Yeah.
it'll come right up.
I've heard of it now that you give me the abbreviation.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
You're welcome.
Dennis?
Okay, as you know, we're replacing Bob Madden as our district lake manager. The search committee consisted of basically the board members. We met in executive sessions starting sometime after October 1. We put out a job description on October 1, and it was closed on October 31. We had, I think we had 3 executive session meetings to review the applicants. As the applications came in, we had made up a score sheet where we compared each person's applications or qualifications with what we were asking for in the job description. We got 42 applicants, of which 4 basically were qualified. The word manager means a lot of things to a lot of people, but it doesn't mean having any skill or knowledge of what goes on at Lake Lemon. We interviewed on December 13 and 14, we interviewed the 4 selected candidates, and they all interviewed well. I was really impressed. But we selected one, Adam Casey, who at one time was, when he was at SPIA, was our lake biologist in James' position. And on December 17th, he was offered the job, and he accepted. I'm going to go through what we offered him. The title was Conservancy District Manager, reporting to the Lake Lemon Board of Directors. The base salary is $48,000 annually, and subject to deductions for taxes and other withholdings as required by law and the policies of the company. Benefits: Lake Lemon Conservancy District will pay up to 80% of his health insurance premium up to $6,000, whichever is less, annually for a health insurance policy of his choosing. The employee contribution payment for benefit plans is determined annually. Vacation time, he's initially has 2 weeks paid vacation, must be used during the time earned. Sick leave, he has 40 hours of paid sick leave off per year. Sick time must be used during the year. Holiday hours, he has 9 holidays: Thanksgiving and the day after, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Good Friday, Martin Luther King Day, primary election day, and election day and Veterans Day. Retirement, LLCD will match his contribution up to 3% of the public employees' retirement fund, PERF. Other benefits, he has the option of living in the Conservancy District office if he so chooses. The Conservancy District shall pay all expenses associated with the housing, including electrical, basic cable, internet, and water. The start date approximately is February 2nd. February 16th to 15 per conversation. That means he probably won't start until about February 16th. Car, phone, travel expenses, the Conservancy District. Question?
No, sorry.
Conservancy District shall provide use for the LLCD for business purposes. Limited personal errand use will be allowed while conducting LLCD official business. The LLCD will pay for basic cell phone package. So he, on December 18th, has accepted this, and so we shall see him at the annual meeting. Is that correct, Bob?
Well, right. He won't be starting until February 16th. He will come down at the annual meeting to introduce him. Again, this was a tentative offer. He's accepted a tentative offer, and his contract says this was a tentative offer based on public motion by the board at a public meeting to hire him. So once you make this motion and sign that resolution, it's a done deal. He is not yet resigned from IDEM. That's where he comes. If the board accepts this tonight, I will call him tomorrow morning. He will then resign from IDEM, give them his 2 weeks notice. He then wants a week or so to move out of his apartment. He's going to temporarily, for now, move in with his mom and dad in Plainfield. So he'll be commuting for a while. He has tentatively agreed to move into the office, but he said that's going to be a sort of a one-year kind of thing, and we'll figure it out after that.
Yeah.
And so,
So I make a motion that we accept Resolution 01-1501, which is hiring Adam Casey for the Lake Lemon District Manager.
Thank you.
Question?
What's his age?
He's 28. Yeah, young guy. No.
Good. Glad to get rid of
You know, not only was he the youngest, but he was by far and away the most qualified in terms of his work experience and his experience at the lake. He was one of only 2 candidates that had any experience working at a conservancy district. So and he interviewed extremely well. He's I guess he's his own man. He has a strong voice.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I would like to say that I hope that if he's gonna live in the office, that I hope we do maybe some little repairs.
yes,
If
and
have
we are,
something
as a matter of fact.
in the
He
budget.
can't, the shower's workable right now, but it's got to be fixed, and
I was more concerned with
so-
the holes in the floor.
if we do any business at the annual meeting in February, any real business, we're trying to get a contractor or 2 to come in, give us a bid to kind of just fix up the bathroom. And, you know, once he moves in, you can't fix it. It's probably gonna take a week to fix the job, or 3 days, or 4 days, or whatever. So it needs to really be done before he gets in.
Even as an office.
So did we finish the vote?
No, I need to call for that.
Yeah, you
All
need to
those
call
in
for the
favor,
vote. Yep.
please.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Okay, there should
Give
be a
Adam-
resolution.
It's here.
Okay,
Okay,
great.
fine.
Great.
Give him our congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well done.
It was a good process. Bob
It really did.
managed the process too, and Dennis and Lance did a wonderful job, sort of heading off the committee work.
I actually am surprised it went as fast as it did. You know, usually at Indiana University, it took a long time to get people to come to the interviews and everything else. But these people apparently were hungry and came when we asked them.
I gotta say, all of us this is all volunteer, and we all do good jobs, but I gotta say something about hats off to Lance Everly, because he went above and beyond, and he just did a great job in leading and taking care of all this, and he's just a remarkable person to have on this board, and we're lucky to have him with the LCD.
This is the public comment portion of the agenda. Yes?
I read in the HT that the Bloomington, the Monroe County Plan Commission is going to be looking at Lake Lemon zoning this year.
Yeah, we don't know much about that. They've never contacted me.
Never contacted us.
It's my understanding that if you own a larger parcel and are wanting to subdivide it off, that's when you would be affected. So they're trying to take the whole rural Monroe County and put limitations on how you can parcel out your pieces of land. So they're coming out and they're saying the difficulty with Lake Lemon is slopes down to the lake. So that's why it was mentioned.
Sending someone to the meeting or having someone come here to inform.
Eventually, that would be nice if they actually contact us and talk to us about what they.
This was the Monroe County Commissioners or the Plan Commission?
Plan Commission.
Plan Commission. Well, they're messed up anyway.
They sure are.
Well, I guess it's just a heads up that we can want to know more than what was in the HT, and I guess we just go to the meeting.
Yeah.
Right. Just to remind everyone, the Environmental Committee worked with the Planning Department on a zoning overlay that has, as I understand it, died with the city utilities department.
I think they're might be interested in revisiting.
Is that are they aware of it, or
Are they aware of that plan?
Who?
the planning?
Yeah, I don't know about the planning
Wasn't it
commission.
mentioned,
but, yeah.
wasn't it mentioned in the article?
No, that wasn't.
The
I
city
don't
of
think.
Bloomington.
Okay, I read something about the environmental overlay somewhere.
They mentioned a couple of other environmental overlays. And when they did the initial ones, they did one for Griffey, they did one for Lake Monroe. And I knew the fellow, the SPIA prof, who was in charge of it all, and said, they never even thought about Lake Monroe.
We're gonna try to get it revisited again.
Yeah, it's too early right now.
No,
We have a copy of that?
Copy what? The environmental overlay zone?
Yeah.
Oh, the
Sure.
draft? Sure, we got it.
Yeah.
The one that we submitted to the CBU?
Right, and that's where it died. But I think the CBU is a lot more interested now in revisiting this whole issue.
Good.
And that's because of some things that has happened on the lake over
Yeah,
there.
that may be, actually.
Susan?
I just wanted to let the board know that I had talked with you last fall about some invasive plant management. We did have a 8-hour workday. There was a big 2-page spread in the Herald Times about that, yay. I'm continuing to work with James and the City of Bloomington Utilities, CBU, to formalize an agreement as to how we will treat some of the invasives that are on the Conservancy District leased property, no private property other than those, my neighbors and me. We are looking forward to picking up more about that in the spring and offering assessments through the Monroe County Invasives, McIris, the group, to come around and identify things for stakeholders, should there be interest. And James and I are probably going to drive the roads a little bit and identify some no-mow spaces so the highway department doesn't spread more as we go. That's one of the initiatives taking place. So just to keep you
Thanks,
updated.
Susan.
Great, good job.
I want to thank all of you. Tonight was exceptional. You were all respectful and helped us make our decisions. I appreciate your involvement very much. Now I'm ending your involvement with a call to adjourn. The next meeting will be the annual meeting. We give away boat passes at that, don't forget. And that's February 4th. Tina called for an adjourn.
I did.
Kim seconded it. All those in favor? Aye.
Take a minute out.